Hi, in this video I'm going to cover the XLOOKUP function. This is the next generation lookup function coming from Microsoft, and it's sure to replace some of the other common lookup functions you're used to, like VLOOKUP or HLOOKUP, index and match, or even the old lookup function. So stick around and let's see what this thing can do. I'm going to cover some common ways you can use the XLOOKUP function, and also near the end of the video, some problems that you might have using XLOOKUP. So let's get into it. So XLOOKUP, you can just type XLOOKUP, I'll double click that, and let's look up some value. I'm gonna look up maybe employee ID number, and some employee number, ID number I know is 615. My lookup array, that was my lookup value. My lookup array here is gonna be, where am I gonna look that up? Which array or list or column I'm gonna look it up? So I'll look up in the employee ID column, the return array. Where am I going to return a value? Do I want the full name, email? Let's say I want to look up that value and I want to bring back an email ID. Now this is very common with VLOOKUP. We're looking up a value, and in our table, our looked up value is on the right and anything they want to bring back is on the left. These are the only values that I need. You can see here there's only 3 arguments that the XLOOKUP really needs. I'll cover the other ones here, these other 3 here. But if I press return, you'll notice that it brings back that value. This is what the formula text will bring back here. And if I wanted to give a little bit more dynamic nature to this, I'm just going to put my lookup values here, my lookup value here, and I'm going to change this. One of the big positive differences with XLOOKUP as opposed to VLOOKUP is you can also look up values to the left, right? So if we had this, instead of changing it, instead of having C2, instead of bringing back the email ID, let's say I want to bring back the full name. All I need to do is just change that and bring it here and look up the full name. I might as well just change this one. Let's change our lookup value to reference this cell here so I can change it later on. Now you can see I can look up values on the right of the table or on the left of the table. I can just change it anywhere based on these parameters. And that's the cool thing about XLOOKUP. Now another thing that's kind of nice about XLOOKUP, let's go into the optional requirements. We have these other values here, if not found, match mode, and search mode. So if it doesn't find a value, you can input any kind of text. Let's just say not found. I'll put not found here. Not found. If I can spell that correctly, and enclose it in quotes, press enter. Now of course it's going to find Leonard Quinley because that's number 615, but let's put 616. And now I can say it's not found. If it didn't have that in there, it would just bring back your common NA function or your NA error, right? So let's Control Z to undo that. Let's keep that not found there, right? So let's go into our next optional argument. This is the match mode. Here by default is looking for an exact match. This is something where if you want to do a match statement, it's very similar to like if you're looking at tax tables and whatnot, you want to do an approximate match, this can let you do that. So if I use, for example, let's say I did -1. I didn't take the default. Now it'd bring back Lenore here. Lenore is actually 615, but it tried to look at the next match, the exact match or the lesser one, right? 616. If I did 617, it would find somebody else. And it found Tomlin right here, 617 Tomlin. And if I did 618, it would still find Tomlin because that's the lesser one. Now it's not really applicable here because employee ID has to be an exact match. But in terms of finding an approximate match, if you're used to VLOOKUP with approximate match, that's what it's basically doing. Now, if we went away from the match, I just put a comma here, and we're looking from searching first to last, we need to change this a little bit. And so I'm going to change this up. Now, instead of looking up the value of employee ID, let's say I want to look up the value of I'm going to move this, get it out of the way here. Let's say I want to look up the value of the department here. And I'll change this one later on. But I want to look up the department. And I want to bring back maybe a person's name, maybe the first or last person in that department according to this list. Press enter, and let's say this is legal. There's only 2 legals here, so this would be easy to represent. So by default, it's going to look at, let's change this and look at our search mode, comma, comma, comma. And we see here by default, it's going to search from first to last. It'll bring back the first value. And we see that that's by default. If I press return, if we look at my legal here, it's going to bring back the first value, which is concertina here. But if we change this to -1, it's going to bring back that last value here, this gain and profit. Press enter. So it just brings back the order, right? So if I go back here, it's going to search from last to first. It's going to search bottoms up rather than top down. So that's the nice thing about XLOOKUP here, that it lets you do that now. In addition to looking up vertically, XLOOKUP can also look up horizontally. Let's say I have my data table that's horizontal here, and I'll put in something like 615 again. XLOOKUP, you can type XLOOKUP. Here my lookup value, I'll just reference this cell here, comma, and my lookup array, where am I going to look up that value from? That array, I'm going to look it up here. And then what do I want to return? The array that I want to return is the full name here. I can just select that, press enter. It's going to find Lenore. If I want to find Felipa, it's going to do the horizontal lookup that way. Also, another nice thing about XLOOKUP, let's go into this other tab, is it can bring back multiple criteria. So let's say, for example, I entered an ID here. Let's enter something easy, 92. Right here, I can type equals XLOOKUP and select that value, my lookup value. What's my lookup array? It's going to be here. And what do I want to return? Let's say I want to return this whole range of data. I only need to have that formula in one cell now. Press enter, and now you can see how it's spilled out the other values here from here. I only need to type one formula. It spilled it out. I don't need to type formulas in my other cell, so it can return multiple criteria. If I change this around, let's say make this to 11, who will bring back Danny Kilner? And that's the magic of XLOOKUP. Now, as I mentioned before, there are some things that are not ideal with XLOOKUP. The first and foremost is it's only available in Office 365. So if you have Office 2019 or earlier, you're not on the Office 365 subscription, you're out of luck. That's a con. Now, you're going to have to remember your lookup array, and then your return array. And so it just takes some getting used to. In addition, if you have to do that and you're copying these cells down, you're also going to have to make them absolute cell references. So what does that mean? Let's say, for example, let's call this one human resources. Human resources. Right? Now, and double click this to autofit. Now, if I wanted to copy this formula down, this looks okay in a way, because at first I had this one as looking bottoms up. Right? Now, if I just change the default, let's just make this really simple and do that and just copy it down again. Let's do that. Conchetta Miles, out of legal, that's that first one here. And then I have human resource, Tomlin Baskey. Human resources, it should have been this one and instead of this one. Why? Well, that's because I didn't have absolute cell references when I copied it down. So you just have to remember that you need to do it for both. If I did the absolute cell reference, put the $signs in front of the cells here, and then copied it down, it would then do it correctly, right? So this looked at Thorndike here correctly. So just some things to remember when you're using the XLOOKUP. But all in all, the XLOOKUP is a huge improvement on the other lookup functions. It's just a great function to use. Unfortunately, it's only on Office 365, but once you get Office 365 and use it, I don't think you'll go back to the other lookup functions. So I hope this helps. Thanks for watching.